Hey designers, this is Kristen from Cut File Classroom, where I teach you how to design and sell SVG cut files for Cricut, Silhouette, and other cutting machines. In this video, I'll show you how to create this cute bunny butt SVG file. Easter is just around the corner and these little guys are everywhere, so I thought it would be fun to draw him today. We're going to create this entire design using just circles and ovals. So if you can make a circle, you can make this design. If you want to follow along, I'll put the link below where you can download the free Illustrator practice file, which includes this finished design, the color palette, and a few of the working stages along the way. I'll start by moving this guy over to the side of the workspace so I have room on my artboard. Then I'll press the L key on my keyboard to bring up the ellipse tool. You can also find the ellipse tool over here in the toolbar. So with the ellipse tool selected, I'm going to click and drag on my artboard, and I'm not going to create a perfect circle. I'm going to create kind of a bit of an oval shape. And then I'm going to use the direct selection tool, which is the white arrow up here in the toolbar. And I'm going to select these two side anchor points of the oval, and I'm going to press Shift to select both at the same time. And then I'm going to click and drag down, and I'm going to hold Shift to make sure that I drag straight down. So what that does is it makes this oval a little bit flatter at the bottom. So if this is the bunny's body, his belly's on the ground and it's a little bit flattened. So that's the kind of shape that we're looking for here. So now we can go ahead and draw the bunny's foot. So I'm going to press L again to bring up the ellipse tool. And over on the side here, I'm just going to draw another smaller oval. And I'm going to use the direct selection tool and click on one of these side anchor points. And then I'm going to click on the bottom of the handle and drag it inward so that the handle lines up with the side of the oval. And then I'm going to do the same thing on the other side. Click the center anchor point and then click the bottom handle and just drag it in so it lines up with the side of the oval. And we can already see that that kind of turns this oval into more of a paw looking shape. So now we can go ahead and add some cute little toes up top. So again, I'm going to press the L key to bring up the ellipse tool, and I'm going to draw a little oval up here for his toe. And then I have my smart guides turned on. If you don't, you can come up to View, Smart Guides, and you can turn those on. And what that does is when I click and drag this, that pink guide that comes up lets me know that this is aligned. So it lets me very quickly align my shapes without having to use the Align panel. So once I get that toe centered with the foot shape, I can make a copy to create the other toes. So I'm going to press Alt on my keyboard and I'm going to click and drag on that toe, and I'm going to make another toe right next to it. And this one I'm going to just click and drag to make it a little bit smaller than the first. And I'm going to rotate it so it's kind of at an angle. And then I'm going to create a copy of this toe and reflect it on the other side. Now to reflect this, you could right click, choose Transform, Reflect, Vertical Reflect, and click Copy. And then you could drag that over and place it and try to align and make sure it's all perfectly symmetrical. But the way that I like to reflect is using the Reflect tool. And that's over here in the toolbar, or you can just press the O key on your keyboard to bring up the Reflect tool. Now, when you select this tool, we can see this red crosshair that's appeared in the middle of my selected shape, but we want to reset that crosshair because we don't want to reflect this shape over the middle of itself. We actually want to reflect it over the center of the foot. So I'm going to click the center of the foot to reset that crosshair. And then I'm going to press Alt and Shift as I click at another part along this axis, and it creates a copy along that axis. So it's perfectly symmetrical. I don't have to worry about right-clicking and choosing menus or anything like that. It just creates a nice quick copy. So if you want, you can drag out a guide and place your guide as your center axis. And again, I'm going to press O. I'm going to click to reset my crosshair on this axis. Then I'm going to press Alt and Shift and then click in another spot along that same axis. And that's going to perfectly mirror reflect. And now I can get rid of that guide. Once you get the hang of it, you might not need the guide anymore, but you might find that helpful to get the hang of doing it that way. Okay, so now our little paw is taking shape, And let's go ahead and add some paw pads, those little pink pads that you see on the bottom of bunny feet. So I'm going to select all of these shapes and I'm going to create an offset. So I'm going to come up to Object, Path, Offset Path. And once again, I want to create an inner offset. I don't want the offset to be outside the shape. I want it to be inside the shape. So I'm going to change this to negative. And I think that looks too big. So I'm going to just take this down. Let's try negative 0.15 inches and toggle my preview to see how that looks. And I think that looks pretty good. So I'm going to click OK. And now I'm going to give these paw pads a pink color. And this one in the main part of his foot I still think is too big. So I'm just going to shrink this one down a bit so it's a better size. And I think that's starting to look better. So once we get our paw the way that we like it, then we can go ahead and combine these shapes into a single vector shape. So I've selected all of the cream colored paw shapes, and then I'm going to come over to Pathfinder and click Unite to make them all one shape. Now, don't worry about that. If those pads disappear, I'm going to press Command left bracket key, left bracket key, left bracket key until we see all of our pads come back. And what that does is it sends that cream shaped foot back a few layers so that we can see all of these shapes on top now. Okay, so now we can see our little foot taking shape, but we have these weird indents here on the sides. So I'm going to go ahead and smooth that out by pressing P on my keyboard to bring up the pen tool. And when I hover the pen tool over this center anchor point, it shows a little minus sign, which means I'm going to subtract this anchor point. So I'm going to go ahead and click on that, and I'm going to do the same thing on the other side. And then now I can use the direct selection tool and kind of tweak. If you want, you can leave it straight if you want, or you can, tweak those so you get a little bit of a curve in here. And then you can press Shift C to bring up the Convert Anchor Point tool. And you can tweak this as well. And you can just kind of play around to create the shape that you want. So once you get the paw shape looking the way that you want it, you can select the whole thing and we can rotate it because our bunny is laying on his belly, so he's upside down. So his foot needs to be upside down. And then we can place the paw over his body. And at this point you can, make it a little bit bigger to match the scale of your body and just get that in a place where you want it to be. Once you have that where you want it, now we can create a copy over here. So once again, I'm going to use the Reflect tool and I'll drag a guide out if that makes it easier. I want to make sure that guide is right over the center. And I'm going to select my paw, deselect the body, and then I'm going to press O to bring up the Reflect tool. Now we have that crosshair in the center of the paw, but that's not where we're going to reflect it. We want to reflect it in the center of the body. So I'm going to click once to reset that crosshair on this axis, and then I'm going to press Alt and Shift and click somewhere else on this axis, and that's going to create that copy that is perfectly reflected. So now we have our little bunny, but he needs his tail. So again, I'm going to press L on my keyboard and bring up the ellipse tool, and I'm going to draw a small circle. I'm going to hold Shift this time to make sure it's actually a perfect circle. And then I'm going to make sure that this circle is centered on the bunny's body. And then I'm going to come up to Object, Repeat, Radial, and that's going to create copies of this circle around another circle. So we have the slider here and we can drag it up to create more copies. We can drag it down to create less copies. If you don't see this little adjuster, see if I zoom out here, you might not see this adjuster. Just zoom in a bit and it should pop up for you. And then you can just tweak this to however many copies you want. And once you get this looking the way you want it, now we need to convert these to actual vector shapes, because right now this is just a live effect. So your cutting machine won't be able to cut this. So we need to come up to Object, Expand, Object and Fill, keep them checked, and click OK. So now that is converted everything into multiple shapes, and we want to unite them to be a single vector shape. So coming over to Pathfinder and click Unite. And now this entire shape is selected, but we want to get rid of this middle piece. So I'm going to hold Shift and click on the outer edge of that shape to deselect the outer edge. And that just leaves the middle selected. So I'm going to go ahead and click Delete to get rid of that. And now I can get rid of my guide in the center. And now we have our cute little bunny. If you're doing this from vinyl, you'll notice that the feet are blending in with the body shape, and we don't want that. So we're going to create an offset knockout to distinguish these little feet from his body. So I have those 2 feet selected, and I'm going to come up to Object, Path, Offset Path, and we have our inside offset again. So I'm going to get rid of that minus sign because this time we're doing an outer offset. And this time we want the outer offset to be on the smaller side. So I'm going to try 0.08, and I think that looks good. So I'm going to click OK. And now we have those 2 offset shapes. So I'm going to press Shift to select the bunny's body and come over to Pathfinder and click minus front to subtract those offsets. So now we have our little bunny with his feet, and they're nicely distinguished and ready for vinyl. So because this is a cut file, we want to make sure that we have as few anchor points as possible. So I'm going to select the full design, right click and choose Simplify, and that brings up the Simplify panel. And these settings usually work pretty well for my designs. We can see that we've pretty much cut these nodes in half. So I'm going to click OK. And the last thing we need to do is make compound paths for all of the like colors. So I'm going to select all of those cream colors and press Command 8 on my keyboard, and that makes those a compound path. Don't worry if you lose your pinks. You can press Command Shift left bracket key, and that sends those cream shapes to the back again. And then we can select all of our pink shapes. And then to do that, I'm going to choose the Magic Wand tool, which is up here in the toolbar, and I'm going to double click it and make sure my fill color is checked and my tolerance is set to 1. And then I can just click on one of these pink colors and it's going to select all of them, so I don't have to go and one by one select them all. So now these are all selected. I'm going to press Command 8 to make that a compound path, and it's telling me they're within different groups. So this is because I have my original copy on the workspace still, so it's selecting everything. All right, so what I need to do is select just this design, and I'm going to group it, and then I'm going to double click to get inside this group. So now when I use the Magic Wand tool and select the pink, it's only going to select the pink that's in this selected group and nothing else that's on my workspace. So now I can press Command or Control 8, which makes these pink pieces a compound path. And that's it. We've created our cute little bunny butt, and he's ready to save as an SVG and upload to your cutting software. If you'd like to learn more about designing SVG files for cutting machines, head over to cutfileclassroom.com and download my free Designer's Guide to Error-Free SVGs. If you found this video helpful, please like and subscribe. If you have any questions or suggestions for other videos that you want to see, feel free to drop them in the comments below. I'll see you next time.